Okay, so this is another focus question. How did the United States emerge as an imperial power in the 1890s? Now, I have resolved to go faster, be more succinct, and not make as many crazy jokes that people who, if you don't know me and you're listening to this, you're like, oh no, this woman is insane. And she is also teaching our youth. And for all of you who do know me and you're hearing this, you're going, oh, I knew she was insane. And she's kind of teaching. And it's okay. Um, okay, so America, since we have narrowed down our definition of nationhood, um, this is also going like out into the world. So the United States, like on their way to becoming an imperial power, is spreading their own beliefs and cultures and to places in the world. So the last quarter of the 19th century is known as the Age of Imperialism. And this is when European empires went ahead and divided up large parts of the world amongst themselves. So the United States is considered, at this point in time, a second rate power. And it is not even considered in imperial competition and diplomacy, not at all. We have large land based empires. Russia, the Ottomans are still hanging on. The Chinese Empire, and we have the British, the French, the Spanish. All of this is going on. Like these people are moving and shaking during the 19th century. Um, in, hold on, I'm sorry, I just lost everything that I was reading and talking about. Yeah. Okay, so we have large land based empires, and all of these guys are dominating much of the 19th century. After 1870, a new imperialism comes about, and it is dominated by European powers and Japan. Japan is like, hey, we want to get involved in this too. Belgium, Great Britain, and France consolidate their colonies in Africa, and Germany acquires colonies also in Africa, just not quite to the same extent as the other powers. And remember, the Congo is the personal property of King Leopold. And he continues on to do some truly horrendous and just inhumane, we will say, influencing techniques. They're horrible. Look into it if you want to be just really, if you want any of your faith in mankind to go away, go ahead and look up something called King Leopold's Ghost, and you're gonna hate me, but you'll hate the rest of humanity more. Okay. Um, so Belgium, Great Britain, France are consolidating their colonies. Germany's getting a colony here and there. The British and the Russians want to control Central Asia, and all of our European powers are trying to control parts of China because they're like chop chop, we're doing it, it's great. Um, by the early 20th century, most of Africa, Asia, the Middle East, and the Pacific is divided up amongst these major empires. They're the traditional ones, the ones we've been hearing about for most of history. Um, and they're all justifying their dominion over these people because they're like, we are bringing civilization to these backward people. Can you not tell how upset they are, how terrible their lives are? Oh, yeah. And also, like we've kind of got a really good manufacturing sector, but people kind of already have bought the products. If we stop producing, then jobs are going to go away. And that means we're going to have a bunch of poor people, poor white people, mind you. And we don't know what to do with that. So if we go to these places and colonize them, we've got all these people who do not understand that they need a slinky. Okay. Let's go to our next one. So America is real good at taking over more land. Like we were always go west, young man. This is great. Um But the 1890s, like, we're really good at taking land on our own continent. We continue to do it. But for the rest of the like, for our relationship with the rest of the world, they kinda just were like, "Oh, isn't that cute?" For much of, for basically all of American history before this point in time. Americans themselves are seeing their, nation as an emerging world power, and, like, everything that we've been studying, the United States, we kind of contain our expansion into our own continent. We have the Monroe Doctrine. Remember, the Monroe Doctrine is basically, it was issued by President James Monroe, and it was kind of one of those things where it was like, hey, all you guys over there in the Eastern Hemisphere, you stay out of our business here in the Western, okay? We're going to take care of it. We do not want any of you to set up puppet dictatorships in South America because that's going to be our job, okay? And also, just so you know, if you think you're going to challenge us on that, we have got our big brother who only kind of likes us a little, but is with us on this one, England, and they are going to kick your butt if you try and violate this. So just try. Just try. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. And they were like, oh, these people are crazy. Yeah, let's just go divide up Africa. That seems like it's a whole lot easier. The only territory acquired after the Civil War was Alaska. And a lot of people thought it was like just completely stupid. It was called Seward's Folly. People were like, why'd you buy that big old hunk of ice, Seward? And he was like, I thought it was, thought that was fun. And Seward, really and truly, he wanted the Aleutian Islands, because it's kind of like hop over points to Asia. So like, he was like, yeah, I guess you can throw in all that other stuff. But he mainly wanted it for the Aleutian Islands. Let me see. Most people who look overseas, they want to expand trade, like I said earlier. They don't want to take necessarily new land possessions or, or like, I guess I would say, traditional empire building things. They're just like, we got products, we got to push those products somewhere. It's kind of like a pyramid scheme, that like your Aunt Lillian has that sells leggings. And she's like, okay, well, I know that there's nobody going to sell in this little podunk town. So if I get in there first, I'm going to be making all the money. Um, Farmers and manufacturers, they're looking at the way the economy is going and they're like, hey, like, the stuff that we're doing, our production is not going to be matched by our consumption. So this overproduction is causing economic crises. And we're like, hey, make somebody else help us out. Let's go find these people. We will take advantage of them. They don't know any better. And we will sell them our crappy products so that we can make some money. Christian missionaries, of course, are the first ones because why not? They take American influence overseas in the late 19th century. So we have this really weird group called the Student Volunteer Movement for Foreign Missions. And they think it is their mission to prepare the world for Christ's second coming. And they have to go to these heathen populations abroad and make sure that they are saved. Sure. A few late 19th century thinkers are promoting American expansionism. You have Josiah Strong, who is a well known Congregationalist clergyman. Remember, the Puritan church is what the Congregationalist church turned into, right? No, Puritans turned into the Congregationalists. I don't know how I said it. Anyway, he tries to update Manifest Destiny in a book called Our Country that he published in 1885. He says that Anglo-Saxon Americans who have shown their ability for liberty and self-government in North America should spread our institutions and values to inferior races overseas, who, he says, will benefit American manufacturers by becoming the new consumers of their goods. It's like, you're saying the right words, But like, you're not fooling anybody into thinking this isn't just complete and utter, we're going to sell our shit to them and then we're going to take advantage of them and take all their land and make them our lower class. He's like, no, that's not what I'm doing. And everybody was like, oh, well, sure, whatever. Um, we also have a naval officer by the name of Alfred T. Mahan, who is a funny little person. Let me see. Hold on. I think I have like pretty good notes on this. Yeah. Let me get it around where I can like actually read them because for some reason, see, look, this is my notes. Sorry, I'm gonna make it a little smaller. There we go. Okay, okay, here we go. All right, so imperialism is a policy where stronger nations extend their economic and political and military control over weaker territories. Now, keep in mind, this is stronger and weaker from a Western perspective, not necessarily from the perspective of the people who are already there. And it's kind of an unfair fight and a bit of a strange situation to say that you're stronger when you have firearms. And these people are trying to, kill you with rocks or whatever. I don't know. I don't know what people use to try to kill other people other than machetes, and those are fun. Okay, by the 1880s, our American leaders, they are convinced that the U.S. needs to join these imperialist powers of Europe and establish colonies. Like I said, for the trade factor, we want military strength, and we also know that, like, we're the best there is. Like, our culture, even though it's super racist and not inclusive and kind of misogynistic and, doesn't really like anyone unless you're white and male, we still need to spread that abroad, man. Duh. We have other nations, they have an international military presence. And the U.S. is like, we like boats too. Like I said, this is where naval officer Alfred T. Mahan writes the influence of sea power upon history. And what's really weird about Mahan is he did not like the water. Like, he's in the Navy, but did not like the water. I believe, I am not going to fact check this, but I'm pretty sure that I took a class from someone one time who said that Mahan grew up at West Point. And so he was like, I'm not going to be in the Army, but I'm going to be in the military. And so he was like, the Navy sounds fine. And then he was like, I hate the water. Um, he wrote this book. Everybody loved it. Everybody loved him. And he said in this book that no nation can prosper without a large merchant fleet engaged in international trade with a powerful navy to protect it. And this powerful navy then requires overseas bases in order to, have support in place and to I keep wanting to say feed the boats, but that's not what I need to say. I can't think of the real smart person way to say it. So just know resupply. Is that the word? Maybe. I don't know. Point is, we're feeding boats, and Mahan didn't like the water. He says that our western frontier is closed. So we have to look overseas for our opportunity. Um, he influences Benjamin Harrison, Secretary of State Benjamin Harrison, who still has a living grandson. Okay, just so you know about that. Um, he influences, what's this guy's name? His name is Blaine. Dang it, it's like super white. James G. Blaine. Wah! He is the Secretary of State, and he is like, we need to get Hawaii, we need to get Puerto Rico, and we need to get Cuba for our naval bases. Those would be great. Um, so yeah, Mahan talked about that. Mahan is like, we're going to build up American naval power. So we start building battleships. Two examples that are pretty significant are the USS Maine and the USS Oregon. I think I see the pattern. Just to make a small comment on the new markets thing, people, we need raw materials for our factories so we can keep making crap. We need to sell that crap to people that aren't Americans because the Americans have already bought the crap and they want new crap. So if we go to these places that are quote unquote uninhabited, meaning not white, we can take all their, natural resources, use them, and then sell them crap that we don't want. We also have this belief in cultural superiority, social Darwinism, the belief that free market competition leads to the survival of the fittest. This is combined with the belief that Anglo Saxons are racially superior. And so we also have this argument that it is the US's responsibility to spread Christianity and civilization to the world's inferior people. Cool, cool. Seward's Folly bought for $7.2 million. The United States is like, Hawaii, that looks fun. I want to go on a vacation there, but not really. Let's go make people Christian. In 1867, the U.S. Takes control over the Midway Islands in the Pacific Ocean. Those are about 1,300 miles north of Hawaii. Nobody lived there. So the other nations were like, what? No, it don't matter. Let's go back to like fighting and addicting minority groups to drugs. Then we were like, that was super easy. That seems fun. Let's do it again. Um, by the mid 19th century, we have American owned sugar plantations in Hawaii. These people are the descendants of early Christian missionaries to Hawaii, and they're all about the like, we're gonna Christianize and stuff. And oh, yeah, by the way, um, sugar grows real well there. Like we get a whole lot of sugar. Um, American owned sugar plantations account for about 3/4 of Hawaii's wealth at this time. This is a lot of white people making a lot of money. Um, the McKinley Tariff of 1890 is passed, and this is something that like really makes the people in Hawaii angry because before this McKinley tariff, Hawaiian sugar is able to be imported into the country with zero taxes. Like it's kind of one of those things where it's like, hey, we're American, we're making American things. Like this is American sugar. Let's slide it in. And the McKinley tariff stopped all that. So our Hawaiian sugar plantation owners are not super happy about that. They're like, wait a second. No, I don't care for that at all. Um, this makes the competition in the open market higher. So these people kind of come to America and they're like, hey, you know what you could do that would make all of this so much easier? Okay, so you could just like annex these islands and then they'd be part of America and we would not have to pay that stupid tariff and we would be able to better compete on the open market. There's a naval base built at Pearl Harbor, which is like the best port there. Um, through some several turn of events that kind of involved the Marines for a hot minute, I think. Was it? Maybe? No, don't recall. I might be thinking of Woodrow Wilson in Haiti. I'm sorry. It's like you're sending American armed forces into an island nation that is controlled by someone else that is not white, and I just get all of those instances of American history mixed up. Um, the monarchy is ended when King Kaluakahua, I think I said that right, was forced to amend the Hawaiian constitution, which effectively makes it so that only wealthy landowners, aka white people, are allowed to vote. This king dies in 1891. His sister, Queen Liliuokalani, came to power with an agenda that was Hawaii for the Hawaiians, and she wanted to remove the property owning qualifications from voting. White people. Oh, I was right. It was the Marines. Oh my God. If I'd have just read my own freaking notes longer. White people organize a revolution to overthrow the queen. Um, they get the help of American Marines. They set up a government handed by Sanford P. Dole, the dull pineapple guy who's looked like Rip Van Winkle because his white beard was so long. I showed y'all the picture. Um, President Cleveland is like, wait a second. Again, another instance of President Cleveland being the voice of reason. Huh. Um, because Harrison is all for annexing the Hawaiian Islands. And Grover Cleveland is like, no, we're not doing that. That's not cool, dude. Um, he refuses to annex unless a majority of Hawaiians favor the annexation. But he does formally recognize the Republic of Hawaii. So it's kind of like that whole Texas thing where it's on its own for a little bit. President McKinley, though, who was elected after Cleveland, he is like, absolutely yes, this is a grand idea. Let's annex. And so on August 12th, 1898, Congress says that Hawaii is an American territory, even though our Hawaiians never voted. Of course not. This is yet another political cartoon. Loving them. God, this was a wonderful time for political cartoonists. Why won't you zoom? Thank you. So this is from 1897. It is once again another Puck cartoon that has Uncle Sam right here. We have Hawaii here, and we have, for some reason, a white man holding a shotgun. So we have a shotgun wedding, folks, even though I always thought that, like, that was supposed to be the bride's father. Anyway, she is trying to find some way to escape this, and you know what? I just had a thought. Maybe that shotgun's not necessarily for Uncle Sam. Maybe it's for our bride. Yeah, the world sucks. Okay, but we're about to move into a splendid little war with everybody's favorite, Teddy Roosevelt. All right. Um, so, I love doing the Spanish-American War, even though it's like not even a war. All right, so by the end of the 1800s, Spain has like barely any colonies left, okay? It has the Philippines, it has Guam. I know nothing about Guam. In fact, it wasn't until the year 2023, yes, that I realized exactly where Guam was located. For some reason, I thought it was near Alaska. Don't quote me on that, or go ahead, quote me. I'm a moron. People know that. So yeah, Guam is out there, and it's also fun to say. So that's great. Spain also has some African outposts. It has Cuba, it has Puerto Rico, and America really, really is looking at like Cuba. So this is like the breakdown of a good Hollywood marriage. They have been a Hollywood power couple for a while. She's obviously like kind of independent from him, but you know, she's sitting there going, "Oh, you're so much older than me." Okay, sorry, let me back up. My metaphor is Cuba is the young trophy wife who is becoming famous in her own right, and Spain is the older, mature actor guy who, kept her from getting preyed upon by Harvey Weinstein, and but at the same time, he's like, "I'm going into my grandfather years. Please let me go into grandfathery." And she's like, I am hot. I got a good plastic surgeon, and I could be out there like living my life and being who I am as a person. I could also be giving a lot of money to the Church of Scientology. So let me just do that, okay? And then you have like this other dude who's like sort of kind of lecherous, but not completely. And he's just like waiting in the wings. He's like, look, you drop that guy, get with me, and you can use my personal trainer. And she's like, okay, I'll think about it. So in 1854, as far back as 1854, American diplomats, they go to President Franklin Pierce and they're like, hey, can we like buy Cuba from Spain. We got that money, right? Like that's a thing we can do. And the Spanish's response was just beautiful. Spain says that they would rather see Cuba sunk in the ocean than sell it to America, which is just chef's kiss. It's only 90 miles south of Florida, so you can see why America actually does have a little bit of a like obsession with it. Um, the Cubans have a rebellion from 1868 to 1878, and like the Americans, they're kind of like, oh, that's so sad. Look at them. Look at them. But like we had our own issues we had to work out. So like at that point in time, we're in rehab. We're like, man, I feel for you, but I just can't do it. The revolt is not successful to like again, the only word that is in my brain right now is independent size, and that's not anything. I mean, liberate. It doesn't liberate Cuba from Spanish rule, but it does force Spain to abolish slavery. So, that's a thing. And this also causes Americans to invest heavily in sugar plantations in Cuba. See, sugar rots your teeth, it makes you fat, and it causes revolutions. Um, Cubans continue to maintain their hatred for Spain. There is a journalist and a poet who is living in New York City who is originally Cuban. His name is Jose Marti, and he is kind of an organizer against Spain, and he actually got kicked out of Cuba because he was doing all this kind of like revolutionary activity. And he is using his whole thing is using a guerrilla campaign and destroying property, especially American owned sugar mills and plantations, because he's like, look, if we can get the Americans to pay attention to this and see that they are losing money because we are not free, they're going to do something about it. They're all about the money over there in the America. We have our US citizens who realize what's going on, but they're kind of divided. So we have businesses who are like, hey, help Spain crack down on these stupid rebels so that our businesses do not get like completely ruined. We want to have a return on our investment. And then we have other Americans who are like, revolution, yeah. Like we ain't got nothing else going on. We done finished our own war. Still trying to figure out what happened there. We got a whole bunch of guns and a lot of time on our hands. So can we go and fight? Um, this whole like war fervor, I have in my notes fever, but I want it to be fervor. So Spain sends a general named Valeriano Weyler to Cuba. Hmm. He kind of cut his teeth in the Philippines, and actually like the Philippines liked him. Some ladies I think named a school after him or something. I don't remember now. But yeah, like he did as well as an imperial governor is going to do in the Philippines. But when he gets to Cuba, he's like, "Hey, this is really difficult. These people are like they're guerrilla fighting. I cannot tell who was an enemy and who was just a plain old citizen. So here's what we're going to do. It's going to sound bad, but just stick with me. All right. We are going to have concentration camps. We're calling them that because it's going to be a concentration of citizens, innocent citizens. We're going to concentrate them in certain areas so that way, if they're not in them, we know that these people are the enemy, and then we can kill them. They also, funny, if they're in this like camp thingy, they also cannot help the rebels. So, it's great. Unfortunately, like if this is something that is just never really resolved well, concentration camps don't seem to be the best place to live and thrive for most populations. I know we're all shocked. We really are. And people keep trying to figure out what the problem is. But it seems to be the, lack of sanitation, nutrition, and close living, which spreads disease. That seems to be it. So, as we move these civilians into these concentration camps, thousands of them died. Not shocking, but the world was outraged. This is also a time of headline wars. So, we have our newspapers that are headed by William Randolph Hearst and Joseph Pulitzer. Um, they are printing exaggerated accounts of the brutality that's going on in Cuba because they want readers. It is as simple as that. Um, this is where we get yellow journalism, and it is like the formal definition is a sensational style of writing which exaggerates the news to lure and enrage readers. So Hearst sends an illustrator to Cuba. Um, Hold on, I'm sorry, I'm reading my notes and I feel like I didn't write something right. Anyway, Hearst sends an illustrator down to Cuba and he's like, draw me some pictures, I'm going to publish them. And the illustrator's like, hey, like, there might be a war, but like, it's not going to be a big deal. Like, this is going to be kind of like low key. And Hearst said to him, you furnish the pictures, I'll furnish the war. And so we now have people who are very much in this thing for their own gain. So let's think. Let me think. I'm going to try to go back and trace it. We have Cubans who want independence from Spain. We've got Americans who have a lot of money invested in Cuba. Cuba's very close to America too. So, it's really good if we don't have somebody there that we may not have a great diplomatic relationship with. The Cubans have been trying to rebel over and over. They have as yet been unsuccessful, but the more and more information that is coming out of Cuba about what the Spanish are doing to try to quash this rebellion seems to get the world more and more angry on the behalf of the Cuban people. Um, while the U.S. has a lot of money invested in Cuba, and the rebellion activities is jeopardizing this investment money. So they're like, America, government, hi, yes, money, protect it, go help Spain. But a lot of the American people, too, were like, we are totally here for a revolution. We love a good war. Let's do it. Then there's something called the De Lome letter. Okay. This happens when, William McKinley takes office in 1897. This is when people are starting to more and more be like, yes, let's go to Cuba. I'm bored. McKinley says, cool, hold on. Let's try diplomacy first. Just an idea. And it seems to work. So everybody's like, yay, this is cool. Love it. But the New York Journal publishes a letter written by the Spanish minister to the United States. So it was such a farce. Like, it's just found in Cuba and they were like, "Oh, bet they wouldn't want to see this published. Hey, newspapers." In this letter, the De Lome letter, it criticizes President McKinley. It calls him weak. And the Spanish government is like, seriously, dude, like, all you had to do was not say anything. That's it. That's all you had to do. We could have been fine. We could have solved all this, but then you had to go and write a letter, and it's like, what is wrong with you? The Spanish government does go and apologize, but the damage has been done. And you know how we are in America. I can insult my brother, but you better not say a word about him because I'm going to kill you. Then, something else happens that is also very bad. A few days after the De Lome letter is published, things get not so good. In early 1898, McKinley sends the USS Maine to Cuba. He's like, look, there's American citizens down there. Things are not going so smoothly. Let's just get them out. Let's bring our Americans home. On February 15th, 1898, the USS Maine blows up in Havana Harbor. More than 260 men are killed. Newspapers claim that the Spanish had blown up the ship. I believe on the last time I researched this, I'm pretty sure that the major thing that we think may have destroyed the USS Maine was like accidental, and like somebody did it, like it was one of our people who did it by accident. So, kind of sad, but shouldn't have sparked a war. But William Randolph Hearst's paper offers $50,000 for the capture of the Spanish who planted the bomb. So, like it's the narrative is being controlled by the media, not the government. And because of this, everybody gets to go play soldier. Remember the Maine becomes like the war cry of this whatever. Um, what's so weird about it though is that the war starts even though like America gives Spain our list of demands and the Spanish say, "Sure, okay, we can do all that." Yeah, yeah. That should have been the end, right? Right? Like they told us that we could have everything we wanted, but no, that was a trick. We didn't really want those things. We wanted to shoot people. On April 11th of 1898, McKinley formally asks Congress for the authority to use force against Spain. And there is a week of debate. They agree to do this, and war is declared on April 20th. Um, so the way this war ends up going, the Spanish were counting on the Americans to invade Cuba, but actually, the first battle takes place in the Philippines. So on April 30th, we have Commodore George Dewey. Not a real buff name, but here we are. He was in charge of the fleet at Manila. No, I'm sorry. He fires on the fleet at Manila. He is in charge of gathering our U.S. forces together. Within hours, every Spanish ship in Manila Harbor is destroyed, and the U.S. forces are allowed to land there. And so also, like, you got Filipinos there too, and they were also like, you know what? Freedom from Spain would be great. So can we, like, do you need help? And we were all like, yeah, absolutely. Come on. And in August of 1898, Spanish troops in Manila surrendered to the United States. So like it's doesn't last a real long time. And keep in mind too that for a lot of this it's like guerrilla attacks. So you've got not like gorilla the ape, gorilla as in the GU gorilla. Actually I think it's spelled GUE maybe. I don't know. I can't spell. The war in the Caribbean though begins with a naval blockade of Cuba. We have the harbor of Santiago de Cuba. It's sealed by American forces. The Army at this point in time only has a small professional force, unlike our Navy. And this Army is supplemented by an inexperienced and ill prepared group of civilians, which is where our friend Teddy Roosevelt comes into play. Let me make sure I have. Oh, I forgot one of these things. Okay, so before the war is declared, or is it right when the war is declared? I don't remember exactly the time frame of it. Let me check, see if I have it later in these notes over here. I don't think so. Okay, so there's something called the Teller Amendment. And this is an amendment that Congress passes. And it just is, it's so stupid. It just says, hey, I know it really looks like we're going to annex Cuba, but we are absolutely not going to do that. We are definitely mostly angry about this battleship thing. You insulted us, and that's why we're fighting. We don't want Cuba. We promise. So the Teller Amendment says we have no intention of annexing or dominating Cuba. Our new soldiers that are helping out our army, they're sent to training camps, and these camps aren't prepared. There's not enough modern guns. We have wool uniforms left over from the Civil War, and Cuba's tropical. I don't know if anybody knows that. It's an island in the Caribbean, so it's a little hot. Our commanding officers mostly served in the Civil War, and they spend most of their time sitting around telling war stories instead of actually training their soldiers. American forces land in Cuba in June 1898 and move towards Santiago. There are 4 African American regiments that are with the Rough Riders. Remember, Roosevelt's guys are the Rough Riders. He had been Secretary of the Navy, and then he was like, nope, I'm going to go kill some people. So he, Rough Riders are volunteer cavalry under command of Leonard Wood. Nobody cares about him because Teddy Roosevelt is our other guy. Yep, and I am copywriting the phrase "the man who would not die" next to Teddy Roosevelt. So he gives up his position as Assistant Secretary of the Navy. The most famous land battle in Cuba is the one at San Juan Hill. This is a dramatic uphill charge by Rough Riders and the Black Regiments, the 9th and 10th Cavalry. Um, it's it only starts because Roosevelt got bored and he orders charge before anybody else is ready. And they're all like, what are we? Okay, guess this is happening. The heroes of the day were actually our black regiments. They handle it while Teddy and his like fancy boys pretend that they're doing great and wonderful things. And Roosevelt always loved to tell stories about his own greatness. And so when you're your own best promoter, you're going to, you're going to declare yourself the hero. Yay. Roosevelt was a pro-expansionist. He believes that this war is going to unite the nation, it's going to unite the men, and he was very concerned with men being men. And he thought that American men had their masculinity suffering because of the economic crisis of the 1890s. So, fragile white man. Um, Roosevelt gets his Rough Riders together. He wants it to be a cross section of America as long as like leave out black people. And Roosevelt also, when he is like recounting his daring feats of San Juan Hill, he forgets to mention that the black troops had already reached the top of San Juan Hill before his troops did. But, again, if you talk loud enough and long enough, people will just believe you, so you will shut up. He's declared the hero of San Juan Hill. The Spanish fleet tries to escape the American blockade of the harbor at Santiago. This naval battle that follows ends in the absolute destruction of the Spanish fleet in that area of the world. American troops invade Puerto Rico on July 25th. Let me see if there's anything else I need to say. The Spanish-American War is concluded by yet another Treaty of Paris. There is an armistice signed on April 12th, 1898. So remember, war is declared on April 20th, 1898. The armistice is signed August 12th of 1898. The actual fighting only lasted like 15 weeks. And granted, 15 weeks is a long time, but when the most recent military engagement of note that many of the soldiers have is the Civil War, which just slogged on and on and on. This was like, get in, get out, get done. It wasn't until December 10th that the peace talks actually began in Paris. The US and Spain, are like, let's figure this out. Spain says, okay, we're done with Cuba. They can do their thing. Like, whatever, be Cuba. Who cares? They give Guam and Puerto Rico to the United States because we were like, we have got to get something out of this. And that snake infested island and that other one that we're never going to give statehood to, but who will speak Spanish for the rest of its existence. And also give us some pretty fun entertainers and baseball players. We like that. And the US buys the Philippines from the Spain for $20 million. There is a lot of debate over the Treaty of Paris. Hold on, I'm going to stick a pin in that right now. We're going to come over here. I wanted to show you this. See, like, Dewey was, he had gotten all of his ships, boats, I don't know what they're called. He gets the fleet here in Hong Kong. And then it's all there. And so it's like, hey, look, we can do this war pretty good because we're already together. Together forever. What's our next one? Fighting in the Caribbean right here. So here's our map. If you're interested in battle maps, the best place to go and look for them is West Point. Like, they have got amazing maps of all the maneuvers that, you know, in the things that we done fought in. Okay. The destruction. This is the destruction of the Maine. Remember the Maine. It boosts patriotism. People are like, you know what we can do? We can have a parade. People love parades. I hate them. They make me very uncomfortable. But, you know, nobody asked me. This is the Rough Riders up San Juan Hill. I do not believe it is to scale, nor do I believe it is very accurate, but I don't know. Ask somebody who was there. It was not me. Okay, so there is debate over the Treaty of Paris. It's kind of like, is America allowed to annex the Philippines? Are we? I don't know. This is the big argument around colonization. So people who are pro-annexation, McKinley, he's like, I have prayed about this. This is actually, if you are in the class that I taught in spring 2024, we read this like thing from McKinley in class where he is super confident in his own abilities. But a quote from it here is, there is nothing left for us to do but to take them all, to educate the Filipinos, and uplift and Christianize them. All right, so the Philippines were colonized by Spain in the 1500s. And I had guessed at that in class. Like, I was like, I want to say it's the 1500s. I do not know why I want to say that. It's because I was right. The Spanish colonized the Philippines in the 1500s. And I believe we all know which religion the Spanish are. That's right, they're Catholic. And is Catholic Christian? Well, depends on who you ask in the South. But overall, yes, the answer to that is yes. Most of the Filipinos had already been Christian for centuries. McKinley, in this particular piece of writing, was speaking to a group of Methodist, like, ministers or leaders or something. So I don't know if that had something to do with it. I don't know if it was Protestants being like, them Catholics, they ain't Christian. I don't know. But it's troublesome. People who are against annexation. The main question here is, does this treaty violate the Declaration of Independence because it implicitly denies self-government to the territories that we annex? I don't know. So with McKinley, this treaty that ends the war. But before McKinley is willing to recognize Cuba's independence, he forces the island's new government to approve the Platt Amendment to the Cuban Constitution. And the Platt Amendment gives the United States the right to intervene in Cuba with its military whenever it sees fit. As you can see, this is not necessarily like, this is, the Teller Amendment was a big old phony. And we do plan on interfering in Cuba. That's going to be a big part of our plan. But Booker T. Washington and Samuel Gompers are both against annexation. Booker T is like, look, son, you got to clean your house before you can go start cleaning somebody else's. And we have race issues here at home. Why are you going to just bring more race issues into the American fold? And we were like, because that's what we do. We're America. Samuel Gompers is afraid that the Filipinos are going to take away jobs from good, God-fearing white Americans. But overall, Americans really, our interest in our new possessions have more to do with trade than with settlement or even harvesting resources. Um, we also want these places to be kind of like outposts for us to trade with Latin America and Asia. In 1899, this is when Secretary John Hay, um, he declares the open door policy, where he just goes to China and he's like, hey, all you European powers, we want to play. This isn't fair. You already chopped it all up and we didn't get any. We want some parts of China. He's like, let us do things too, cause stuff, and we're mad. Um, this Western influence in China leads to the Boxer Rebellion, where Christian Chinese and foreigners are targeted by Chinese nationalists, and American troops mow down a whole lot of people to stop the uprising. The Senate approves the Treaty of Paris of 1898, ending the Spanish-American War on February 6th of 1899. So America, we got our empire, dang it. And then we demanded these other empires to let us play in their sandboxes. So many Cubans and Filipinos and Puerto Ricans, at first they were like, yes, we need American intervention. We got to get away from Spain. And this is what's going to help us. But since the Americans continue, like, we hang in there and we hang on. And because of this, they are like, wait, we don't need these people. So they learn real quick that American help doesn't stop when you want it to. Um, Emilio Aguinaldo is the leader of the independence movement in the Philippines, and he establishes a provisional government with a constitution that is modeled on America. McKinley is like, you know what? I think we will keep those islands, Christianize them and whatnot. Our Filipinos rebel against the Americans. This war between, like, trying to, maintain hold on the Filipino possession, it's actually longer and causes more death than the Spanish-American War. So, the war is not like it's people in the United States are like, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? Our soldiers are committing atrocities against Filipino civilians. They're burning villages, they're torturing, they're raping, they're executing. And because of this, like, America, we lose our patina of liberator. Although I will say, this is one of my all-time favorite things, is the fact that America goes to the Philippines, because the colonial government is led by William Howard Taft. And because of this, we get the best presidential picture in the history of presidential pictures. Let me see. I am going to find it. And actually, no, it's in the textbook. I don't know where it's in the textbook, but it's in the textbook because I remember pointing it out. So this is the most fantastic picture ever. It is William Howard Taft riding a water buffalo. And if that is not utter perfection, I don't know what is, because they basically have the same expression on their face. And why would anyone try to ride a water buffalo? Like, that's so silly. That's silly. But this government that is in the Philippines, while Taft is like hanging out with his buffalo friend, um, they modernized these islands. They put in railroads, they put in schools, they put in public health offices. They have modern methods of agriculture. So, I'm sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this. But our policies, like American policies in the Philippines, like it's the same song, just like remixed. Um, they favor land-based local elites, and it doesn't matter if you're native born or if you're American, if you're there and you are, kind of rich, then you're going to be the one that is victorious here. And in turn, persistent, unshakable poverty is provided for the majority of the Filipino citizens. Yay. No, it's not good. All right, so this is the American Empire. As you can see, it's what it is. Hacienda La Fortuna. I don't remember what this is, and I do not have a caption in my notes, so I apologize. But it's either in the Philippines or Cuba. And yes, here we go. Fighting Philippine independence. Uncle Sam is trying to control a knife-wielding insurgent. And this is obviously a comment on American attempts to control independence of the Philippines. And is he wearing like long johns? Uncle Sam. Like, I know modesty is good, but sir, it's hot. This is waterboarding, only very old fashioned, and it's widely practiced by American soldiers in the Philippines. So, yeah, this is a. See, doesn't he look happy? He looks happy, right? Sure. He's definitely going to give in, unless he drowns, but even so, nobody's going to care. Here it is. Yes. Oh, God bless me. God bless past Mrs. Murphy for making sure that the most important part of American history is included. Look at that. Same face. Convince me I'm wrong. Whew, okay. We did the British poet Rudyard Kipling's poem about the white man's burden. He was an imperial poet, so he was definitely in favor of imperialism. And he's like, hey, America, look, we've been doing it for, I'm sorry. Oh, America, we've been doing this for so long. I grew up in India and then wrote the Jungle Book and then made Disney make an animated film about it, and I don't know. But do it. Be white and do things. I don't know. Anyway. So, American supporters of empire think that white dominion of non-white people is the definition of the progress of civilization. From an anthropological standpoint, at this point in time, there are people that, like, there are anthropologists who think this too, that, like, ultimately we're all evolving on a kind of like a evolutionary tree, trying to evolve into the best and, like, the best example of civilization, which is obviously, Western European / American cultures. The the actual truth is there's no perfection. There's no one that's doing it the right way. I don't know. America's empire, though, it ends up sparking kind of like some disagreement, debate, whatever, about how democracy, race, and American citizenship work together. So, in the American government, there is no provision for permanent colonies. Like, we do not have that set up within the Constitution. It's not there. Um, it wasn't put in there because Declaration of Independence, anyone? Like, that was what we were trying to get away from. Jefferson's idea of America as an empire of liberty assumed that new territories are eventually going to be admitted as states and that the residents of these territories will become American citizens. But that doesn't happen. Are you shocked? You should not be. There is a pattern here. After the Spanish American War, we have nationalism, democracy, American freedom, and they all happen to line up with Anglo-Saxon supremacy. Love it when that happens. Democratic and Republican leaders want to keep these new possessions, and they fear, though, that there will be negative consequences of incorporating quote unquote alien races into America. Um, the Foraker Act of 1900 declared Puerto Rico an insular territory, which makes it different from previous territories in the American West, because, it's an island, so it's totally, totally different. Its 1 million inhabitants are defined as citizens of Puerto Rico, not of the United States. And there is no future path to statehood allowed for Puerto Rico. Filipinos are given the same status. In some Supreme Court cases that are decided between 1901 and 1904 that are known as the insular cases, thus insular territory, insular cases, the Supreme Court says that the Constitution does not fully apply to overseas territories held by the United States. Let me say that again. The Constitution does not fully apply to overseas territories held by the United States. So, this is a rather extreme limitation on how far American freedom will go. Yeah. Congress does recognize the fundamental rights of the people that live there, but in any other way, they can govern them as Congress sees fit for an indefinite time. Hawaii becomes a traditional territory, even though it's an island, I'd like to point out. And it does eventually become a state in 1959. The Philippines become independent in 1946. And while Congress does give American citizenship to Puerto Ricans in 1917, Puerto Rico has the status of a commonwealth. It's neither a state nor a territory. It has its own government, but it lacks a voice in Congress and it does not vote in presidential elections. So America and their racial attitudes definitely have a global impact on imperialism. There are global concerns about immigration, race relations, the white man's burden, Chinese exclusion and segregation in the Jim Crow South still influences laws in Canada, South Africa, Australia. I do believe I think South Africa actually, when they were trying to institute like formal apartheid, I think their whole thing was, hey, go look at America. They're doing it right. Yay. This was taken at the Louisiana Purchase Exposition. And at this exposition, 1,200 Filipinos are exhibited in a native setting to win support for the annexation of the Philippines. Like zoo animals. This advertisement talks about the white man's burden and it calls for soap's use as an agent of civilization in the dark corners of the earth. I'm gonna zoom in on that for a little bit. Oh yes, this is definitely a man with a transatlantic accent. The first step towards lightening the white man's burden is through teaching the virtues of cleanliness. Pear soap for all your colonialization needs. Ugh. Okay. Let me see. Oh yeah, hell yeah, we're gonna get done with this sucker. All right, so America's new empire is a cause of debate, controversy. There are opponents in the anti-imperialist league, which it's in this kind of like little fun club that writers, social reformers, all these kind of people who wanted like reforms at home, businessmen who think that it costs too much money to have an overseas empire, and of course our fun little American racists who were like, they're not white. Don't know if you noticed, but they're not. I don't know why all of like my bigoted people are Southern, but it's probably because it's one of the few accents I can successfully do. This anti-imperialist league, it warns Americans that an empire is not compatible with democracy. And it says, hey, Americans, we need to help these people, these Puerto Ricans, these Filipinos, get their independence. What is wrong with you? What are you smoking? It's not weed, because we're going to outlaw that so that we can get rid of Mexicans. In 1900, the Democrats nominate our old friend William Jennings Bryan to run against President McKinley. And the Democrats platform is against the Philippine War, for militarily subjugating a foreign people, demanding liberty and self-government. The president of the Anti-Imperialist League declared that the nation's most pressing question was whether the nation would be a republic or an empire. All right, so we got people who are in favor um, of empire, but they're also like, hey, we can twist this too. Okay, so this is Senator Albert Beveridge of Indiana, and his name is spelled Beveridge. I do believe it's pronounced Beveridge, but now I want to call him Beaver Ridge because it sounds really fun. So Senator Beaver Ridge is from Indiana, and he was insanely racist. Like I looked up a speech that he give I looked up a speech that he done give that he gave at some like racist, like meeting or something. It wasn't, they didn't call it that. They called it something else. But it's mind-numbingly, like, it's insane how bad this thing is. And I wish I remember where my notes are on that, but okay. But Beaver Ridge says that America's not going like abroad because we are greedy. We don't need material resources. We don't need like more power nationally. Like, look at us, we're the best. We just want to bring freedom to people. Huh? Huh? America is practicing what is called benevolent imperialism, and it is going to uplift backward cultures and spread liberty. America, Beaver Ridge argued, only went abroad for trade, not to rule other nations. Meh. McKinley ends up winning this election. He beats William Jennings Bryan in 1900. So, at the start of the 20th century, keep in mind this is the century in which I and all of your parents were born. It seems like America is on its way to being a great power. We have writers that are saying American influence is gonna go across the globe. Brooks Adams, who is the grandson of John Quincy Adams, who was the son of John Adams, who was the husband of Abigail Adams. He wrote a book called The New Empire. And in this book, he predicts that America's economic might is going to outweigh any single empire, if not all empires combined. This really didn't happen until after World War II, but the things that are going to influence America's global strength overall, they're already put in place by 1900. We had already surpassed European competitors in industrial production. Um, the mergers that are happening, they control most corporations. So politics are stabilized. The white North and South have reconciled under, fictional narratives. And while we have severe racism that's just keep plugging along, um, I'm sorry, I didn't know where I was going with that. But anyway, so we still have all this racism, we have segregation, we have Chinese exclusion, we have Indian reservations. All of these limit citizenship and freedom. But we have questions that over freedom, questions over freedom, that's the order those words are supposed to go in. But like the relationship between economic liberty and political liberty, also how much does the government, what are they supposed to do in order to create social conditions for freedom? Um, what is the definition of citizenship? What is the definition of national identity? We don't have answers to these questions. I don't know if we have questions to those. I mean, I don't know if we have answers to those questions now. So this is a propaganda photograph depicting national reconciliation experienced because of the Spanish-American War. Look at that. We got man in gray, man in blue, and a blonde child doing something. Let me see. I gotta zoom in on it. A blonde child with chains on? I don't want to examine that too closely. But you feel free to do so. This is an 1898 cartoon featured in Judge magazine, and it is celebrating imperialism by showing the United States and Britain dispensing civilization left and right to all of these people. Look at that. So charitable. All right, so I know you don't believe me, but we did it. We made it to the end of chapter 17. I am just as shocked as you. And this is a preview of chapter 18. So, progressives. TR comes back into play. He's loud and energetic and I don't know. So yeah, I apologize for how long this took, but there's so much. I mean, we had a war, we did a whole bunch of stuff, okay? But yeah, I apologize for how long chapter 17 ended up being recorded. It just is what it is. Yeah, so the end. And no one ever lives happily ever after.